Hello everybody and welcome back to the Data Playbook. Today we have the Sunday pregame reviews, so let's get right into it. Next up we have San Francisco and New York, where San Francisco is favored on the money line with a spread of 2.5 and a total line of 48.5. Just quickly going through the rankings, you have San Francisco that's above average at stopping their opponents from scoring, but not so good at scoring themselves. They also are one of the best passing teams in the league, but everything else is about average or below par. Their rushing's not great for having McCaffrey, and their allowed passing rank's not too great. With the Giants here, they're below par about on everything. They're not very good at stopping their opponents. They're not very good at scoring. They're below average at passing. They're below average at stopping passing. They're almost one of the worst teams at stopping the rush, and about average at rushing themselves. But they lost Cam, so that may go down. So we'll see what happens with them, and I'll move over to the averages so that you have those to correlate with the rankings. Your quarterbacks in this game are Brock Purdy and Jackson Dart. Brock Purdy has 17.2 average fantasy points per game this season. Jackson Dart has 15.2. Brock Purdy has 4 passing interceptions this season, with 1 fumble lost due to a sack. Jackson Dart also has 3 interceptions, with 1 fumble lost due to a sack. I'll flip over their averages, even though Purdy's only had 2 games, so hopefully this is actually the return, where he'll stay healthy, but this is what we have for his averages for those 2 games. And there's no rushing information that comes up with Brock Purdy because he doesn't rush enough. Jackson Dart does get 18.5% of the team's carries, and this whole thing will change due to Cam Scadaboo, and we'll look at that with the running backs. So getting into the running backs, you have Christian McCaffrey and Tyrone Tracy taking over for Cam Scadaboo. Tracy doesn't have much to speak of since he's just been kind of the backup, so only averaging about 6.5 points per game. Christian McCaffrey has averaged a whopping 24.6 fantasy points per game, which is pretty crazy for how bad San Francisco overall is at rushing. There are no other turnovers, so if we look at the averages and their share, you get Christian McCaffrey with 70% of the team's share, which is probably the highest in the league for anybody who owns the highest carry share. And with Tyrone Tracy over here, he gets 19.3% of the team's carry share. That was being the backup to Cam Scadaboo, so that's why Scadaboo has about that 43% here. So we'll see what Tyrone Tracy does, if he can cut into that. This seems like I think it will forever shrink because it looks like Cam is out for the rest of the season. So we'll see how this carry share changes for this team. For your number 1 receivers, you have Juwan Jennings and Wan'Dale Robinson. Jennings averaging 7.8 fantasy points per game, and Robinson averaging 12.5 per game. With no turnovers, here's their averages. And looking at their receiving share, you have Juwan Jennings only having about 10.4% of the team's share, but I believe that's due to some injuries where he was out, maybe did not keep up as much. Over here with Wan'Dale Robinson, he has 27.9% of the team's receiving share, which is the largest out of anybody else on the team. For your number 2 receivers, you have Kendrick Bourne and Darius Slayton. Kendrick Bourne because Ricky Pearsall appears to be out for this game, so we'll look at Kendrick Bourne instead, who averages 10 fantasy points per game, and Darius Slayton averaging 5.2 fantasy points per game. Slayton is also the only one with a turnover here, with 1 receiving fumble loss. And if we flip over to our averages and look at our team share, you have Kendrick Bourne down here with 21.1% of the team's receiving share, which looks to be about the second highest. Over here with Darius Slayton, he gets about 10.8% of the team's receiving share. Wrapping up with tight ends, you have George Kittle and Theo Johnson. George Kittle has had his struggles this season, but he's averaged 8.9 fantasy points per game. Theo Johnson has averaged 8.5 fantasy points per game with no turnovers. And switching over the averages, we'll look at their team receiving share. And with Kittle, again, with his struggles, he's only had 3.3% of the team's receiving share versus Theo John over here, who has a much closer to average for tight ends at about almost 12% of the team's receiving share. So this will be an interesting game. I think that if the Giants have any chance to win, they need to shut down the passing from San Francisco. They need to keep an eye on McCaffrey too, but it does seem like San Francisco does have trouble running the ball on average. So if they can use that to their strength here, although they are not very good at stopping the rush, so it would seem like San Francisco should have this game pretty well in hand, given how bad the defense is for New York. So that's all I have for this game today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and subscribe, and leave a comment on what else you might want to see in the future. Other than that, thank you so much for watching.